And my guest this evening here in our Oral Gibbs Live is member of the French Parliament, MP, Mr. Daniel Gibbs. How are you doing, sir?
I'm pretty fine, thank you.
Oh, good to have you in the program. So what's the latest so far? I know the French president was here in St. Martin, and he brought a basket of a lot of money.
Yes, actually for, well, a basket of money, not really, but a lot of promises, that's for sure. Whether it was for St. Bart's or St. Martin, even though it was a short passage, he answered to certain of our wishes.
So you satisfied?
Well, I will be satisfied when I really will see it in action and seeing it happening. We got a certain amount of, I would say, promises that were giving on certain issues that we had in the collectivity functioning, and some that should be, one of them that should be in functions on the 15th of this month, should have been, and haven't got any answer about it as yet from the collectivity, but the others should be to come.
What about this? I also read too that there's a 30 million euro debt on St. Martin in the CAF.
Yes.
And that's a lot of money.
Well, on that particular issue, well, he said he would not wipe off that debt. And that debt is due, it's a social debt that is due for the RSA. And the 30 million that you're talking about is the debt, the actual debt and part of the past debt. Because in 2007, the RSA costs the government, I think, around 1.5 million per year. Today, we are at 16 million per year, between 16 and 17 and a half as I'm talking to you now. So this will be accumulating when we go, more we go during the years, more that debt will be accumulating. And the president said that he will not wipe out that debt, but he would, I would say, give installment period of time for us to be able to pay that debt.
Do you think there's any political will to look into trying to limit that debt anymore?
Well, I think we need to revise our social laws in terms of what is happening today, because on a large territory, things are easier to handle, I would say. On a small territory, the effect is immediate, and that we see today. So it is part also of the exchange between both sides, the northern side and the southern side, between our functioning. I think we need to relook at the things that we used to do in the past and the thing that we do today. I think we need to see further and a common working together on certain issues that are affecting us, such as the social, as I said, but also the fiscal situation and other areas where we need to be, other areas where we need to look into in terms of not only exchanging but cooperating on those issues.
I'm going to come to you back on some of the fiscal problems of the French, but I want to move on to that cooperation issue, because I know the last time you spoke about it here, and also in terms of cross-border cooperation. How is that now?
Well, as I say, there are many efforts that are made in terms to have that going forward, but I always try to insist to ameliorate that kind of relation and having certain decisions taken locally. And that's the reason why, Oral, on past program with you, I spoke about the United Congress, French and Dutch. I think we all want to manage our businesses locally. I think we want to exchange things between each other without, I would say, other government interfering in our affairs, but we need to take charge of that responsibility. And for me, the best way is to create an institutional, I would say, composer with both Dutch and French elected members in order to be able to deliberate and have some, I would say, engagement of both government, not only the leaders of those government, but the entire structure of the electorate body. I explain myself, the president and his island council on the French side, the prime minister and his parliamentarians and ministers on the Dutch side. And that United Congress will be the exchange with those two, I would say, institutional representative in order to be able to deliberate on certain issues so that it can be sealed. You know, when you and I, we sign a contract, it is between you and I. It will engage only you and I. When I would say, it implicates the entire electoral body, it gives your document and it gives your, I would say, the issues you're trying to put forward, bigger importance, more solid and concrete importance, because it will be written in the law.
Now, there was also the issue, I think, of police and cooperation there. Where is that now?
Well, that's the treaty that was signed, and I must admit that it was signed first in January 19 by the Dutch side, well, the Dutch government, and it has been done lately in France, and I was a reporter of that treaty, and today we have a document between the both sides in which we can cooperate on different issues, cross-border issues, I would say airport immigration issues, criminality issues. You know, it was.
So the incident that happened last year shouldn't happen again.
Shouldn't. It gives you a manner of, I would say, acting liberally on each side of your territory without having information or decision taking on a higher level. At least it will be helping the everyday operation, and I think this is a better for the both sides of this island in terms of police cooperation.
You know, I have spoken many times with you. I'm going to say something right here about this side, that side of the island. The parliament that you're a member of is the French parliament.
Yes.
Consists of how many members?
477.
All right. We have a parliament of 15 members of 15 corporations, not politicians, corporations. These corporations are interested only in personal gain and profit. To hell with the rest of the population. And in comes you now from the northern part, French side, a member of parliament, serving the people of St. Martin, want to cooperate, want to work. I wish you luck in trying to get these 15 corporations to come along with you. Because every year, for the time I've known myself, on November 11th, it's always that discussion. Nothing never happens. And it's worse now than it ever was in the history of this island. So I don't know where we go from here.
But you see, Aurel, I do believe by giving a chance to solid cooperation between our both territories. As you say, we often talk about it, and maybe it even bored both our population when they hear talking about the cooperation issues because of what you've just said. Nevertheless, I think, and that's the reason why, again, I think that in order to make it real, we need to institutionalize that specific part of our functioning. And that's why I'm calling for a united Congress between both. Because when you take a decision and it's a deliberation that is sealed by all politicians, it gives you another, I would say, it gives another importance to the decision that you're taking. But to come back to your point, there are areas, Aurel, that probably either side would not want to cooperate on. And that's fine. It's just a matter of knowing what are the areas you want to cooperate on, what are the areas you don't want. Once we fix that, we each know on our side how to go along it. So what I'm saying is that maybe there are certain areas where I would love to see cooperation. Maybe there won't be any cooperation there, but then when I know how to handle it from my side. And I think we need to go in that direction. I think we need to give place to hope. Yes, it's going to be difficult. You know, when you deal with human being, it is always difficult. But you need also to give that hope, to show them that it will make a better tomorrow for our population. And as you mentioned, in France, we are 477 parliamentarians, and I sit in parliament in France, but the president of the collectivity of the French side is who handle the everyday functioning on our French territory. But we just amend on laws that will have effect on our territory, which is a little bit different.
Almost still the same, because we have a council of ministers who take care of the day-to-day operation. But this corporation of 15 members, as we call our so-called parliament, is basically just a corporation of 15 members. And the people of this island are so disappointed in their actions for the last 4 years. And this other bunch now is even worse. And it's sad that I have to speak like this, because a lot of people on this island feel the way I speak tonight, but don't have the courage to. And it's very annoying, because when you look at what's going on, and I've had you here many times, and I hear you all the time, and I'm still waiting for them to reach out to you, and they haven't. And I wonder when, and it's gonna like unbelievable, really. And I'm not here with any agenda. No, I'm here for St. Martin, and I'm not here pushing your cause or nobody's cause but St. Martin's cause. But it comes to a point where you got to ask yourself, because the people, the men and women of Marigot and Great Bay, they want cooperation. But the government, that's an issue.
But Earl, I think there will be a time where we will have our back against the wall, and there will be no other way than going through that. The only thing, and that's where I see your anger, is that maybe at that time it will be too late. So that's why we need to tackle those issues very quickly. But I think, you know, I still want to keep that hope that if I'm here as a politician, if I don't believe in that, Earl, if I don't believe in a concrete cooperation between the both sides, then it's no use for me as a politician to stay in politics, because whatever we do on one side affects the other side. And that's why we have to be very careful when we take decisions on certain things, to make sure that it's not going to create a negative effect on the other side. And for only that reason, every day that we take a decision, that decision has an effect on the other side. And sometimes it's very simple to do things that can fix both sides. It's a political willing. You will find. I'm sure we will get to the point where we will have this majority of politicians that really wants to go in that direction, because for two reasons. The first one, there are some that have that willingness, but we are getting at the point that we have no other choice, and we will have no other choice.
I'm glad you mentioned that. Let's go to something. I don't know if you can use your influence here, but the hospital on the French side, man, incredible.
Yes.
I'm impressed. I'm impressed. I had to go to an emergency there the other day with my daughter, 2 o'clock in the morning. Unbelievable service. I can't say the same thing for the St. Martin Medical Center, regretfully. That doesn't mean we have the worst, but there's no political will on this side of this island to step in and correct the problems at the St. Martin Medical Center. You representing St. Martin St. Bart's in the Parliament of France and seeing this beautiful functioning hospital that's on the French side. When I speak with people here from our social insurance, we are sending people with problems, medical problems, that they can just drive across the border, less than 10 miles. They'll fly them to Latin America, the Dominican Republic, Curacao, and Aruba, because Marigot is too expensive. Isn't there a way we can get around that?
Yeah, well, that's a very good point, because
I don't want to be putting you in the spot here, but I think
you're not putting. I'm very free with what you're saying, because it brings me to this point. The same thing that we did for the police corporation, the same thing we should do on the social level.
Are you prepared to work on that?
I'm open. Oral, I'm open on every I would say, way of cooperating. Health is something that is very important for our population. And yes, there are things that we're doing. I'm happy to hear you say that our French hospital has a very good functioning. We find certain things that we would like to ameliorate. So it's nice to hear that, on the other hand, you see it as a good functioning. So that's already a good point. So maybe we can exchange on the way that we function. The second thing is the social benefits that we have, which is a burden for us because you know the RSI is one of those big social problematic that we have actually. But you know the hospital on the French side should not refuse anyone from coming in, and everyone needs to have to be cured for whatever he has when he comes in the hospital. So this is the French, I would say, way of functioning, but which I would say would have also consequences financially for us. So we are also working nationally on those issues in order to be able to counteract on the different problematic that can endure. But yes, overall, to come back to your question, we need effectively to have this type of treaty, socially speaking, with the Dutch side, but also economically on certain issues. Economical development, fiscal laws. At a given point, we will have to uniform. We have to reach, maybe not tomorrow, but we will have to reach at a certain time in these years to uniform our fiscal policies so that when one thing that he would be better off on one side, that shouldn't be the issue tomorrow.
But they're abusing it right now.
Exactly. But you see, that's because you need a solid type of relationship between both so that you can put on your agenda that you want that tomorrow, fiscally speaking, whatever investor comes on this island, he will not see a difference between a French side and the Dutch side, that one side will be developed a certain way, the French side will be developed another way, but fiscally speaking, we will be close, so close that there will be no difference. So the only difference will be, well, I prefer the style of this side, or I prefer the style of this other side. I prefer the French style, or I prefer the Dutch side style. That should be just the difference that we have, because we will be regrouping most of the values that our territory can offer. Because you know, we are in a region, we are blessed to be, and I said it many times here, we are so blessed to be in this region. And when I talk about the region, I'm not even talking about Saint Martin, French side and Dutch side. I'm talking regionally, St. Bart's, Anguilla, St. Kitts, Sabre. You take that environment, Oral, we have it all there. Whether it's for the cruise line, whether it's for airlift, we are one of the islands with the most airlift landing on Juliana because of their international airport, and that we need to ameliorate. That we need to I would say moderate, because this is something that is important for us because we live off tourism and we need to get this clientele here. So the work has to be done in a cooperative way so that we keep that clientele in this region. That's why today my way of seeing things have evaluated, because before I would see it on a local St. Martin level. But now I realize, as I was saying yesterday in a speech, it's the union that makes the force. And we need to have that union in order to keep that clientele on our territory.
You know, there's a foundation, the French side, Nature Reserve, is the name of that?
Réserve Naturelle,
yeah.
Yes.
And it's amazing what they're doing. I admire what they're doing. And there's one on the Dutch side, and they're struggling. They're really struggling just to survive. Just recently, in the last year, things have improved quite a bit for them. But there's an issue, a central issue. I think probably everybody either forgot about it or don't want to speak about it, and that's the Simpson Bay Lagoon.
Oh, yeah.
We touched on it the last time. You can watch that lagoon, and the invisible border has become visible just by looking at the boats anchored in it. But there's some issues, then that again comes back to a form of cooperation and oyster point
Yeah.
that we got to deal with. And it seems like you hear from people in the field who are out there complaining about it, but when it gets to the politicians now, the people that have the authority and the power to make the change, nothing is happening.
Yeah. Well, you see, the French Natural Reserve is financed also by state. It is good because we need to preserve our environment, as you say, because we're living in here and we need to have an environment that is protected. Now we have to be careful with too much protection because that would stop economical development. But on the same hand, you need to be very careful with each development that you're putting in place because it has immediate consequences. You took the lagoon for an example, and yes, we are constrained with some laws on the French side, and I would say, we are very critic about them sometimes because it stops us from doing certain investment. For a project, sometimes what takes you 8 months can take 2 years or 3 years for us because we have to do studies on water, studies on current, studies on all sort of things. If you take one, I would say, plant out of the sea, those plants that grows along the bayside, yeah, they will ask you to calculate the effect on the rest of the environment. So sometimes it's too restricted, and on the French side, it's very much restricted. And on the Dutch side, for example, well, you did a bridge in 8 months. If we had had to do that bridge on our side, I can guarantee you it would take us a little bit more time. But nevertheless, you have to find, I would say, the middle between the excess of protecting and the excess of doing whatever you want to do. And that's a recipe that's going to be maybe hard to find, but we need also, and you're right, we need to have a firm cooperation. You know, sometimes when you look at the restriction of European laws, because we on the French side are European, there are certain things that are good. A lot of things we can blame, but there are things that are good that are not applicable on the Dutch side. But for the wealth, for the good of the population, probably it would be nice that should be implemented also on your side. On the other hand, there are certain things that you do that we are not submit to, but that we can take and we can implement, and that takes a solid cooperation. I know it is sometimes frustrating to hear because we keep talking about it and we don't see it happening. We keep signing things on the 11th of November, as you say, and we don't see them effective on the other hand. But we are coming there.
But you know, for example, take food. Anybody with a little common sense now who's concerned about their health and what they eat, and you can see it, they're shopping in Marigot, they're not shopping in Great Bay. Why? Because the European standard on food is better. In my opinion, and many people's opinion, it's just better. There are regulations on control of food, fruits and vegetables, that I think we need to implement here on this island. But unfortunately, we don't probably have the manpower. But because you all are part of Europe, yeah, it's there.
I think that I will add also the fact that the fluctuation between the dollar and the euro is now equal. Yeah, because that also on our side, at a certain time, we were saying that the French side population would shop more on the Dutch side because they get 30% more for their money on the Dutch side. So I think that has also to do with that. But you're right. The constraint of the requirements that are made in food issues is something that is very much followed on the French side and very much protected. Sometimes it's even annoying to see that you can do it on the Dutch side. I would take steak that come. We have something that we call traceability. And if you don't have the traceability, you cannot sell on the French side. You will have problems. Yeah. And it is frustrating on the Dutch side, on the French side, because when tourists come...
Frustrating? Why is that?
I'm going to tell you why. Because when tourists... That's why I said we need to uniform our laws, and we have to come to that. Because when a tourist comes in St. Martin, and you ask him for Angus steak or any good steak that would not have the traceability as required on the French side, well, normally we shouldn't be able to sell it. The red tuna, we cannot sell it. because the traceability is not there, or the protection on red tuna does not permit you to sell on the French side, and you tell your client, well, I can't sell you that because the law does not permit. But then he goes on the Dutch side, and there's no border. He goes from French to Dutch without knowing sometime that he's changing side, and he can eat an Anglo steak, and he can eat red tuna. So he says, like, what are they telling me on the French side? Or what did they sold me? This was not red tuna. So you see, this can be problematic for us because the requirements are not the same. Now, if you say, and we say, okay, on Saint Martin, we will have a high standard of protection on our food. And this is something
across the board, everyone.
Everywhere. And this is something that we can unite and say, okay, whatever we do on that issue, because we want a solid reputation on whatever we sell in food, you have those requirements that are a burden for you, but we will amend them also on the Dutch side. Then you have a unite policy and everybody works equal. And you have an advertisement that will be done in the back by saying that when you come to Saint Martin, not only you will have good hospitals, because you have the means to have them, because you cooperate and on each side, because whether you go on one side or the other side, there's such level of cooperation that wherever you fall sick, you will be taken care of. In the food system, in the food industry, it is exactly the same thing. If you can have that reputation, I think you have it all. And if you take it on the other level of your functioning, I don't see why Saint Martin cannot be a treasure in the Caribbean.
Yeah, you know, I must say these days we don't see anybody coming over here to buy food anymore because the euro is so weak. You know, but
buy the drinks.
Yeah.
No, but as you see, things change. We must admit that the dollar and the euro is problematic when the fluctuation of one is higher than the other one, which means that maybe someday we on the French side need to interrogate ourselves by saying, should we stay in the status that we are today, which means staying strictly European, or should we try also to follow our neighbors and try to put up the level of legislation and come also as OCTs like you are, or in different areas also? Do we stay with the dollar once we are OCT? Do we stay in the euros, or do we convert to dollars? I'm not saying we have to choose specifically being dollar, but we need to have the expertise or the studies done in order to evaluate the effect of being or staying how we are, or changing to another currency. That is something to see and to look into, because most of the time people tell you, oh, we should all be dollars, so we won't have any problem. When you come to this island, there will be one unique currency, and that will be the dollar, or that will be the euro, because you also can change and say that you want to be in the euro system. All is possible. It's just to see what is the best for both sides.
What's this thing about? The other day, it seems like the president or the collective is basically begging citizens to pay taxes. I was quite surprised with that.
Yeah, well, the two things. First, the president should be begging for you to pay your tax. This is something that should be natural, and there's no economy that could be functioning without you paying your taxes. Now, if they're not paying their taxes, this can have a reason. And what I was saying for numerous years now, I think our fiscality has seen its limit. I think we need to reshuffle the entire fiscality of the French side. You take, for example, your side. You have most of your fiscality based on indirect taxes. And we are based on direct taxes. And we have seen for the past years that we need to uniform here again our taxes and putting them in indirect taxes. So we have done some studies, and we were on the verge of doing that. And in 2012, I thought that the actual government would have gone in that direction. The fact is no. That in French we say, you know what you have, you don't know what you're going to get. But this mixed with the fact that economically speaking, our side, and you can see it, it's flagrant, our side is not, I would say, motivated. Our side does not have action, economically speaking, as you can see on the Dutch side. Businesses are not doing well. Businesses are living on the expectation of what would be happening on the Dutch side.
Really?
You have 2 million passengers in cruise line today, which is a record, which is probably...
They go across the border.
They come across the border, yes, but you see, when we define our tourism, we define our tourism at a certain level. We said that there's already a mass tourism that is taking place on the Dutch side, and we need to capture now another type of clientele, which would be a clientele on a higher standard. And that's why we aim in our development with the cruise ships, with boats with higher values.
So selective.
Selective, yeah, exactly. And that's why I had the vision of putting in place also a mega yacht marina for mega yachts, but also for those cruise lines that are carrying a certain amount of passengers, but with a, I would say, higher standard of spending, in the sense that they will be paying their trip a little bit more than what they would be paying on boats that comes on the Dutch side. Even though you have on those boats, Oasis of the Seas, you have a high-end clientele that is taking trips on those boats. But essentially, all the boats that would come to Marigot would be boats with just that class and just that type of clientele. So our side was adapted to that kind of tourism. And every year it was dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping because we were not putting in place the infrastructure necessary for that. So today, in order to reboost the businesses, in order to reboost the economy, we need to reform our fiscality. And there again, and I know it is not also pleasant to hear it again with the corporation is concerned, but we need to uniform our policies in terms of fiscality. We need to have this island, I call it fiscally sexy. If you want investors to come over on your territory and spend money and turn and boost your economy so government can make back their incomes on that economy, you need to have a sustainable fiscality. You need people that when they come here, they won't ask, oh, what's going to happen? I will invest here for 5, 6 years, but who's going to give me the guarantee that next year there will not be a new fiscality, there will not be a new tax, there will not be something else that would change in terms of fiscality. We need a little bit of stability as far as that's concerned. And that's why I say on my side of the island, I say every time we have an island council, you offer new fiscal rules, you offer a new tax, you offer a new rate of a tax that exists. And this does not give a feeling of stability. And this is probably one of the reasons why we have a lot of our residents that are not paying their taxes. And they're also, or I would say, using the facility of saying, oh no, but I am on the other side. And when things are good, I'm on the other side. When things are bad, then I come back on this side. So you see, we have this probably going on both sides at a certain time. But that again, we need to find between the two governments a way of putting stability on those issues to be able to control better the paying and the incomes coming from our fiscality.
In the last 2 to 3 years, there have been an influx of French European nationals conducting business and living on the Dutch side. I wonder, what is the benefit? Because there's so many of them doing it now.
By living on the Dutch side?
Yeah, and opening business on the Dutch side.
When you're on the Dutch side, you're not known by the French government, but probably
not known by the French government.
But probably, or maybe fiscally, it's more interesting for them to be on the Dutch side because, as I say, the action is happening on the Dutch side.
No, but they're ripping off the government on the Dutch side because they're not paying taxes. All right, they're coming, moving for 2, 3 years, pay no taxes, disappear and gone. And maybe if there's a better cooperation, so and sharing of information.
They're not known on
to the government.
your side, and they're not known on our side. Well, that's where again, Oral, and I agree with you on that point. Here again, you need to have an exchange of database. You need to know what are the businesses on the Dutch side, what are the businesses on the French side. We need to have a better area of cooperation where that is concerned in exchanging a certain amount of information so that we can be sure that one will not, I would say, escape from either taxes, because that's what they're playing on. And the law permits it today. The situation as it is permits it today. So probably, as I said, we need a treaty of understanding between both of us, because it happens with the U.S. and France. I take that example naturally, because France has a convention signed with the U.S. in which if you're working in the U.S. and you pay your taxes in the U.S., you can bring in your income freely in France without paying tax, because you already paid your taxes in the U.S. But you can be working in the U.S., not paying certain tax. You pay some local taxes, but your income tax will be paid in the French system. So either you submit yourself fully to the US system, either you submit yourself for your income taxes for the French system, but you pay your local taxes in the US, so nobody can escape. This is a kind of, I would say, reciprocity that we should have between our two sides. And if it takes a treaty for that, then let's put in place a treaty. Because when there's a treaty, when you sign MOUs, again, it will engage only those who sign the MOU. When you have a treaty, everybody has to follow.
Yeah. You know, the thing is, because on this side, on the Dutch side of the island, and this was said to me by people who are involved in the tax administration, you're in the system, so therefore we always have you on the radar. And then all these other French nationals who just pop up here, disappear 2 or 3 months, 3 years, abusing the system, getting away with everything, paying absolutely no taxes, creates a real burden on this side. And at the same time, the government is aware of it, but they don't care because they get that extra little money just for the license, and then they're happy. But you know, as a native local person, you open a business, and in less than 24 hours, they're at your door. You see, so it's a situation where we are stuck, and what that is doing is it's limiting our people from getting involved in business. So what we're getting is just everybody else starting operating a business except to our own people.
Yeah, so you see, we already start doing the cooperation, because what you're suggesting is basically that we sit down and we uniform our fiscality so we can be aware of what you're showing.
And create a level playing field for even for our own people.
Of course, of course. And I don't see any problem with that, especially that it brings back things to normal, and effectively it would give more hope to those, as you say, who are trying to do things, and immediately if they don't pay, they will be at the door immediately and they will be closed, and it's a policy of why me and not him. And when it's like that, you see, this is also on the French side why certain don't pay, because they would say, why should I pay? And my neighbor is not paying. He's doing exactly the same activity and he's not paying. So that also, when the president is calling for the population to pay their taxes, I think yes, it's a must that we need to pay our taxes to give the possibility also to our government to function. But the government needs also to understand that they need to create that richness. They need to create the environment to give people wealth, financially speaking, to be able to pay their taxes.
So the project you had, the waterfront, is that off the table completely now, or?
As far as I'm concerned, it's still, it was my plans for 2012, but the collectivity of what I've understood is trying to put it in action, and they are actually working. I was in a meeting lately where they were still looking at the deepness of the project in terms of draft, things that we had solved already, that we had already given a orientation as far as of what kind of ship we wanted in our port, what kind of cruising, what kind of mega yachts, all these things. But they are reviewing again that part of the project, and apparently they are interested in putting it in action. So I cannot go against Orwell, but I could just be frustrated that that was one of my major points during my campaign. And as you said the last time, it was and it is still my little baby. And I think that we need to go in that direction. We really need to go in that direction. We need to work on other parts of development on our friend side. But this is something that will give you a little bowl of oxygen, because we have no work. We have no hotels building. We have, yes, some constructions going on, but in the private, there's not much happening. And in the public, we have an airport that is on standby. We have a commercial port that is there, also on standby, trying to put in place a bidding for augmenting its capacity. And we have a waterfront project that probably take too much time to be reprocessed.
Well, I understand that when you look at the ocean floor on the French side, it's pretty shallow compared to the Dutch side. And that poses a problem for ships with.
Yeah, the draft, I think when you go the furthest outside, it's 7 meters in the bay. And then you have to go very far to get depth like 8 to 10 meters. You have to go quite far. And that's why we have to create a channel inside of Marigot and dig also inside of the Marietta in order to bring in those ships. But as I say, the more we wait, and the more the others will be acting, as you say, you have your facilities and it's continue going on. I heard something about Saint-Sambé. I see in St. Kitts, while I was talking about putting in place our project, St. Kitts was already looking at it. And I see St. Kitts is today doing very well as far as that's concerned. Now, I haven't been there to see by myself, but I'm hearing and I'm reading things in the newspaper. Haiti has also a project in the south of Haiti, and the same dimension of the project that that I wanted it for Marigot, but also Barbados had its project. I mean, this is not even a maybe. This is something that is in the Caribbean. We have something that is called the sea and the sun, and this is our richness, and this we need to use. And these are the facilities that we need to put in place. I mean, the others, if the others are doing it, it's for a reason. Or now, after, as you say, we need to limitate the size of our project, probably. But when you have the studies, when you have the expertise that tells you this is how you have to do it, it's not you deciding it. It's those who are acting in that field every other day that are explaining you what to do. Then that's the direction you need to take. When first, and that we have to give for your side as a thumb up. When we talked about the cruise line terminal, there were a lot of things that were said, but today I really believe that if we didn't have that, I'm questioning myself how would we living today, because that is the biggest part of our incomes today. The tourists that are coming off the cruise ship, 2 million passengers.
Yeah,
when I look at our beaches, when I look at our side, and yes, we still have a part of tourism coming off of airlines, but if we don't have those passengers from the cruise ship, I mean, it will be very difficult. So we have to give thanks to that. Now we need to control and make it differently, make it in a wise manner, because when you have 2 million passengers, you have more traffic, so you have traffic jams, which means that you need to see road network. This is another area of cooperation that we have to work together, because it will use the French side as much as the Dutch side. So we need to work together on that issue. The sewage system, we need to work also on that issue. Yes, I see and I hear that there are things going on, but I'm not talking about one point and one location. I'm talking on a general base island, which means that we need to focus on the real problems. We do not have to see it only on what is the problem in that little area. No. What is the effect on the entire island? What is the network for the road system on the entire area? Do we want to go through the mountain? Do we want to double our roads? Do we want to do water taxis? Do we want to do a tunnel? The sky is the limit. What are we ready to do together to solve those problems? Because one day, you probably will hit the 2.5 million passengers, but then they won't go nowhere else than on the boat because it will be so much of congestion that people will be just bored coming to St. Martin. So we need to make things easier so that our taxis, our buses can facilitate themselves by moving around the island on times that are correct without being late, without being in a rush, without being blocking the one who's using that road for work. I mean, we need to have this mixity of different ingredients working in better terms.
There's so many things happening, and there's a lot of work to be done. How you feel now? Because you're in office for, what, 2 years now?
2 years and a half.
Yeah, 2 years
it's mid-mandate because it's a mandate for 5 years.
So you're halfway through?
I'm halfway, yes. And I think that I've done a large part.
You satisfied so far?
Yes, I must admit, yes. I just did my summary of what was done in the 2 years and a half. And
Hold that thought there. My callers, they run out of money very quick, so yes. Take a hold, come back. All right? Oral Gibbs Live, my caller. Hello.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Gibbs.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
I would like to get MP Gibbs' opinion on the €100 tax we're paying on the front side. And also those people living on the board on the bay. I want to know if they pay any tax. Because they're polluting the island. If you go, Mr. Gibbs, if you go, La Belle, you will see what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
So, and also, the homeless from Sembat is sent to us there. What do you think about that?
Okay. The aspect of the first question, the first part of the question concerning the 100 euros, I was totally against.
What's that?
It's the fact that if you're not, I would say, if you don't owe taxes, they give you a document telling you, okay, you don't owe taxes, and with that document you can have certain social benefits.
Oh, okay.
And I was against it because I believe that if you're not due to taxes, they can't ask you to pay for a document that will permit you to have subsidies, minimum subsidies to live. So that I was against it, and my group expressed itself on it. That was clear. I understand, and I said, I understand the intention that was behind it, but I don't think that was the solution to fight that issue that they wanted to clear off. Nevertheless, on the second point, which the caller was talking about, the housing and the lagoon. Yeah, of course, and I saw it the last time when I was going through the lagoon. That is not right. That is totally not right. They need, first of all, to pay something because they throw their garbage, they throw their sewage, and they have no taxes as if you were living on Earth. And that is not a situation that can be longer tolerated. I think we need to implement a law for them to be taxed the same way that you would have a house, because you're using the territory. It's water, but you're using the territory. And he's right. We have to be very careful. Do we want to see? They spoke to me about it, and I saw it with my eyes, and I didn't know there was so much of those housing on water that this is coming out of hand.
Yeah, let me see the other callers. Are you there, caller?
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Thank you for waiting, sir. Thank
you.
Go ahead.
Good evening to the MP. Knowing that the ideas for both French and Dustin Martin are great, there's vision, but at the end of the day, it's funding. And knowing that the MP is closer to the European Union or the European Parliament, opposed to the Dutch and French side, what is the possibilities of having
the European Union fund these projects that will incorporate both French and Dutch side. Because at the end of the day, we need funds, and funds is what's going to make it happen. And how the possibility that the MP can lobby on behalf of both French and Dutch side to European Union banks or to the European Monetary Fund in order to build projects such as bridges, roads, sewage plants,
Okay.
so forth.
Let me have you answer you because we're almost out of time. Thanks for calling, sir. Go ahead now.
Yes, very quickly. The situation and the setting we are in today, we are European and that side is OCT. The fact that it is two different European systems, we have today the possibility of using Interreg. Interreg, which is funding for two different nationalities with two different systems. That is what is possible today, but it's very difficult. It is very difficult to put an application. So there's two ways, sir. The solution, there are two. Either the French side becomes OCT like the Dutch side, and we are due to a certain amount of financing, we are due to certain financial funding. In Europe, which the Dutch side is handling very well because as you see the developments that they are doing, the airport, I mean, they are doing it with private, but they're also doing it with certain amount of funding, which is called the Fed. Okay, so either we become like you guys and we become Fed, and we work that way. Either the Dutch side can also choose, and their institution to become European region, just like us. On the other hand, I think the caller is mentioning the fact that the president of Europe, Juncker, has put in place special fundings for all territories. And I think that that side, even though not being Europe like the French side, has also access to those fundings. And caller, I thank you for that question because not later than this morning, I was talking with the port director for, I would say, a meeting in Brussels for those questions on that type of dual financing, French and Dutch. And it's something that I'm implicating myself so that we can see what are the best possibilities for both sides to be able to get some fundings on these common projects, because the interest of doing things in common is also to get a better financing to be able to put them in place.
Well, we just about out of time. I have 30 seconds in closing. You will add.
Well, I thank you, Oral, for being on your program, for inviting me on your program, and it's always interesting to give the population that information. And I think, as I said, yes, we are going through a lot of difficulties. Yes, we are seeing a lot of things happening, and we have a lot of frustration. But I think we need to give the hope that tomorrow things will be better, because signs are there that there are, as I said, some of the politicians that are willing to go to that next step, which is a solid cooperation. And I would say again that the situation that we are in today have our back against the wall, and we have no other issue than doing that solid cooperation through what I'm explaining all these days: United, Congress, French and Dutch.
We're out of time. Well, thank you again, and much success.
Thank you.
And that's it for now. See you next time. Till then, good night. Take care. Bye.